Today's edition of Freshly Pressed 981. You're tuned in and listening to Smooth 98.1. Love music, love life. I'm live with Ayo Myro Essay.
Good morning. Thank you, Valentine Ohu, and welcome to the show, Lagos, Nigeria, or from wherever you're watching us from or listening to us from.
Yes, talking about what?
You're not watching. Vibe in the studio.
Vibes on vibes.
We should start calling Ugo Ability Drake since they're able.
And we have Essay Oix.
Yeah,
That's my favorite handle there.
Hello, Essay.
Hi.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My almost namesake.
Almost.
Yes.
Welcome to the show. Now, to start the conversation, also, you remember that we have a WhatsApp platform for messages.
0809 444 Let's go straight to our stories. And unfortunately, we're going to be starting on a sad note. The president has responded or reacted to the unfortunate killing of Dr. Chiki Akuyili. Dr. Chiki Akuyili is the widower of the late former Director General of National Agency for Food and Drug Administration and Control (NAFDAC), Professor Dora Akuyili. The president has said the killers won't go unpunished. This is in the This Day newspaper. I'd like to get your thoughts on this one.
When I knew I was speaking this story, I kind of shuddered a bit, Ayo. I don't know if you were unfortunate enough, like I was, to watch that video yesterday. It basically just spoiled my entire mood. No matter who you are, no matter where you're from, either whatever side of the political aisle you're from, or whatever part of the country you're from, or the world, if you see that video, there is no way you would be normal, at least for that few minutes. It was a dastardly act. I don't know, for whatever reason, I don't think anybody or anyone deserves that kind of death, right? No matter how much the person is your enemy, don't deserve that kind of death. And it's really painful to see that it appears almost every election season in Anambra State. There's usually this kind of violence. Flashback 2017 was similar. Even at that time, if you recall, IPOP even said, I think it was a vote or die or something like that. And IPOP basically want people not to come out of what is typically election violence, but this one was just a different, and I just want too many. The president has come out now to promise that the killers won't go unpunished. Well, I mean, I'm sure a lot of people will say this is we've heard this over and over and over again, but somehow I tend to believe that they're serious this time around, because there's nobody who will see this video who would accept it. It's just totally unacceptable, right? And this is not because of the stature of the person that was killed. It's just the way the people were just killed. It's just unbelievable. And let's also remember that if you say, oh, who discovered someone, I think Buhari basically discovered Dora Akuyili back then when he was chairman of the PTF or so. Yeah, Akuyili was a lecturer in university, which was recommended to him back then, if I recall. And that's basically how she came into limelight.
So it's quite personal.
Yeah, it should be personal for him and personal for the governor of the state as well, and any serious person in Anambra State. A lot of the leaders in Anambra, it's very personal. Akuyili, that family is a renowned family in that state. They are proud to have. It's a family that they are proud to associate with. So for something like this to happen to them, it's painful, pretty painful. And I think that I think governor said that he's putting a 20 million naira bounty for anyone to provide information, according to him, useful information that can help catch the killers. I do believe that they'll catch them. I just hope it's the right killers that they catch and that these people are brought to justice. We shouldn't tolerate things like this, no matter what. Whether at some point I was reading that perhaps it was mistaken identity. Later they said it was political killing. I don't care.
It was deliberate.
Yeah, I don't care. I mean it was. And by the way, it wasn't just him. I think there were 9 of them. Yeah, it's everybody. Like, that was just deliberate murder. On a different scale, and things like this shouldn't happen. This is just an election, and the interesting thing is that if you ask me, this is the first time, I think, in a while that you would even see candidates in Anambra State that are what they're onions. They're interesting candidates, people that have different economic ideas and platforms. Right now, people that you can at least respect to a large extent. I mean, we do respect to the previous candidates as well, but I mean, these are just fresh people. So it saddens me that something like this is happening, and I hope that these guys won't die in vain. I do hope that justice is brought to the killers and they're arrested. and I hope that the rest in peace and the sacrifice that perhaps, I mean, if you can characterize it that way, will bring about greater growth in Anambra State. It's really painful. That's the way I describe this.
It is. When the news broke yesterday, it was met with unbelief, shock, tears, sadness. Not just that he's dead, but also the way he died.
Yeah.
Especially being the husband of one we consider a national hero who is also unfortunately late. Like you mentioned, we look forward to when we'll come here on Freshly Pressed and announce that his killers have been apprehended.
And they probably name the sponsors.
And exactly, because at the end of the day, I mean, there are usually sponsors behind these things, and we just have to expose these people.
Absolutely.
I think we should not forget that there's an election coming up in Anambra State, and if they do not handle this very well, voter apathy is likely to increase, and building trust is very key.
We're going to be talking about the elections and insecurity in Anambra. In fact, INEC has actually raised a point around that. Perhaps we should go straight to that story then, since we're in Anambra State.
Speaking of which, let's talk about that story. We look at the Anambra State elections as INEC has expressed worry over the insecurity situation in that part. Speaking of the Anambra elections, they say some of the INEC chairman, Mahmood Yakubu, expressed his concerns yesterday. There was a forum put together. It was titled or tagged Inclusive Election Anambra and Beyond, organized by the INEC Press Corps in Abuja. He noted that the tenure of the incumbent governor would expire on the 17th of March 2022, and quoting relevant sections of the Constitution. When he says, or he terms it constitutional crisis, what does he mean? And it's based off of the recent events surrounding, the upcoming elections. But share your thoughts, please, Essay.
Okay, so during the conference, during the forum, you rightly mentioned that the current governor will exit March 2022, and in line with the Constitution, we should conduct an election either earlier than 150 days to the expiration or not later than 30 days. And with what is happening currently in Anambra State, we're already scared. We've been looking at the issues in the state, and we rightly believe that there's a possibility of postponement, if not thorough cancellation of the election. And we're already seeing the trend as to shutdown of phone services. You see what the military is likely to put in place in Anambra State ahead of the forthcoming elections. A lot of questions are left unanswered, and which is why we believe that the government should look at the security architecture in Anambra State, even in the entire Southeast. Now, if you look at Anambra State, in terms of land, it is small. So I think it's something that if the military and the security agencies take serious, they can handle before the forthcoming election. There's a possibility, if it's not handled well, postponement, and we do not want that.
What's the implication of that?
People no longer trust the process, rigging possibility, and why would I want to come out and vote if I know I'm likely to lose my life? Is it worth it?
Okay.
All right, thank you very much for highlighting voter apathy. We know that this is something that INEC has tried a number of times, or is trying to ensure that people are not disenfranchised or not coming out to vote, and so that's a big concern.
Salah Emiowole on YouTube says, our society seems to have lost our sense of humanity. Someone was just recording the scene. No attempt to help. The whole thing is heartbreaking. He says the way the country is now, people just settle grudges by killing people, and they just know that they can get away with it. No, they can't. Well, horrible, he says.
All right, thank you. Let's go on to our next story. Ugo, Nigeria approves paternity leave in first civil service reform in 13 years. I think we need a lot of bright or positive news this morning, so I think this is a good one to help us along with. This report is in the Premium Times, and it's been carried by, as you would expect, almost all the daily newspapers. The Nigerian government has approved 2 weeks of paternity leave for new fathers. They're saying this is happening in the first civil service reform in 13 years, and was disclosed by the head of civil service of the Federation, Folashade Yemieson, at the end of yesterday's Federal Executive Council meeting. Paternity leave, 2 weeks, and they've changed it to 14 working days actually. So about 2 weeks and a few days. So 2 weeks and almost 3 weeks actually, if you look at it in calendar terms, because that's Monday to Friday, and Monday to Thursday. What's your take on this? Do you think that it's high time the fathers were given this opportunity to spend time bond with their newborns that they've mentioned, or do you think it's further cutting down human resources and time?
No. By the way, this is something that was also, so I think it's also in line with International Labour Organization's, guidelines.
Yeah.
So it's good news. Let's be honest about it, and it's actually not the first time as well. I think maybe Lagos and some other
Lagos has
states,
passed it.
they also has something similar. And there are also some private organizations in Nigeria today that also practice same. But taking it on the federal level just gives it a different spin. So this, ultimately means a lot of organizations will fall in line and to adopt this. As much as this might sound like it's good news for the fathers, right? Because they have, extra 14 days to bond with their newborn. And it's actually, much better, much greater news for the women, for especially who, go through, the rigors of childbirth. And there's nothing like having your spouse beside you for that first few days, right? So it's golden, really. So it's good news, and I think that is the fact that this basically headlined the civil service, the reforms that we've had. I think the first or so in 13 years or thereabout, and just shows how important and significant this is to the entire civil service. So it's something that we should welcome. For every father out there, mother,
Congratulations. Yes, congratulations. And I just want to say, when they give you this leave, use it according to why it was given.
Tell them.
Thank you. Please use it. Let the women speak. Don't.
Where are you going to with this? Where is she going to with this? It's just 14 days with the mother and the kid. That's it.
I think that on resumption, the man should provide pictorial evidence.
Wow, you see where they're going with this.
I see.
Okay.
I'm sure the women agree with that.
Okay.
Well, guess what? We face. I say we face the same issues as the women, even if we don't experience the same pain. But there's something that's called sympathetic
Please
pain.
Don't even go there, Valentine. Except you don't want to be attacked this morning. Don't go there.
So where I'm going to is, as they bring pepper soup for the woman, she knows where is pepper soup,
Anyway, it's something else as well, because there were a lot of stuff. It wasn't only this one, but one other key one was as well is I think virtual meetings are now announced, official. So they put it into civil service rules.
Fantastic.
So which means that civil servants can have virtual meetings. That's the one I hope that they take seriously, because I mean we all know what civil service is like, and how inefficient that structure is today in Nigeria. But perhaps maybe with virtual meetings things can get a lot better. Now, what I also look at as well is budget spend. I hope that they know that we know how much things like Teams and Microsoft Teams and Slack and all this other thing cost. Don't go and blow our budget because you're trying to do civil service reforms. You're trying to do virtual meetings now. Doesn't mean that you probably don't need to start to build huge offices for civil servants. These things should all have meanings at the end of the day, and the meanings is in terms of reducing cost and becoming more efficient.
Absolutely.
Right? I think that's what it means, and that's what I would expect to get from here. But all well and good. Good news so far.
That's another one we need pictorial evidence for. So when you're on a meeting, you have to put on your video, because already there are virtual meetings in quotes happening in the civil service where you are virtually a worker for like 3 years.
Unfortunately, probably the first maybe 2 quarters, we've spent the first 50 minutes in the meeting. Say, can you hear me? Turn on your video. You're muted.
And they said it's now they've transformed from paper service to digital service.
Yeah.
Oh wow!
So digitalizing things, which is fantastic. Sheldon puts a twist on the story on the paternity leave. Says if a man impregnates 3 women in 3 months, that's enjoyment. that's a different answer.
If your organization recognizes your 3 wives, that is.
Okay, well, they're allowed up to 4 wives.
Probably concurrent.
All right, so let's move on. And I'm glad that we did that, light-hearted story, because we're getting into heavier stuff. Punch newspaper reports essay, declare bandits as terrorists. Senate tells Buhari. It's a very short story, Punch, but yet very punchy. Let me put it that way. The Senate on Wednesday asked the President Muhammadu Buhari, to declare bandits as terrorists in this country. This isn't a call this isn't the first time we're hearing this, so it's not unique. However, it's coming now from the Senate, and they are sort of mandating that stop referring to them as bandits and call them what they really are. And this resolution was sponsored by Senator Ibrahim Gobert from Sokoto East and co-sponsored by 8 other senators. What do you think? Is there something powerful about giving it the right name, terrorists, as opposed to bandits?
We've always talked about the right nomenclature for things.
Yes.
Yeah.
Personally, for me, since Q2 2021, I stopped calling them bandits. They're terrorists. they are what they are, terrorists. And the fact that if you give them the right name, I'm sure they'll receive the right treatment for their actions. It's hitting home in Sokoto, and I'm sure that's where the pain is coming from. And it's no longer low-profile killings, high-profile killings. And these guys are not just, you looked at it initially from the economic angle to say, oh, probably because they are disenfranchised, they don't have enough to feed, to eat. Now the state and the federal government is trying to, improve their means of livelihood, but still, they are still killing, useless killings, kidnapping. This is a terrorist act against the state of Nigeria, as far as I'm concerned. And I'm happy that they are acknowledging that fact. And I'm sure using the right terminology, they will be treated the right way. But I would still want the government to go a step further to release names. Names. They claim to know the people behind these guys. They've said it. They have names. Please, publish them.
So very quickly, why do you think the government is reluctant to publish the names or name these people who are behind these, in quotes, banditry or terrorism, if you'd like to call it?
So they might think it would jeopardize their current security act. They're trying to get onto these guys. Probably some of them are not even aware that they know who they are, so they're trying to get onto them. So it might affect the whole strategy.
Isn't that fair?
That makes sense.
Yeah.
It makes sense, but what's the plan? Short to long term. Is it working?
And also, I mean, in the same vein, if you reveal the plan, doesn't that preempt their next action?
Come on. Military will come and tell us they've done this, they're doing this for Boko Haram, they're going to some place, they're going to some place. My point is, I understand the fact that there are issues. You don't necessarily need to come out open to give us in detail what you're trying to do. But at this point, it's very critical for us to know what is happening.
Yeah, but
This style has not been working. They've been holding on to these names over a period of time. Valentine, where are we? It's getting worse every day. So let's try another strategy. The secret, keeping secret is not working. Bring them out to the open. Probably that would even get people to know. I even know where this person is.
Yeah, but what do you think would change then if you know who's responsible and the authorities are supposed to be the ones to pick them up? Like, what would be
I always
different?
believe in the power of Nigerian power. We have our power as Nigerians to call out and hold our leaders accountable. A lot of actions which our leaders want to do, once it gets to public domain and you hear a lot of outcry, they are forced to act. Probably that will force them to act.
All right.
Thank you so much. There's a comparison made on the Guardian newspaper, Ogodre, between the salaries of judges in South Africa, Ghana, to that of Nigeria. While there's a line drawn, between this, I mean, the disparity, and also there's we can't ignore the exchange rate factor, but also in terms of incentivizing the judiciary to work effectively, and even along the lines of, creating a financial autonomy for judiciary that has been spoken of for quite a while. How does this affect the present level of effectiveness, so to speak, of the judiciary?
Well, I think that it's nothing new, really. It's not just the judiciary. I mean, the civil service, across civil service in general, even military and police, our salaries on average compare, very little, to other countries, and that's a known fact. That's why a lot of people who have called for civil service reforms believe that you have to have a civil service that is also commensurate with your revenue, right? So what's the point having a bloated civil service where people don't really earn enough, right? There's some countries where, government salaries or public service salaries competes favorably with private, and that's because, these governments, these are countries that want efficient governance, efficient government. They want people that are happy to go and work in the public service and are remunerated very well. So whether it's judges or police or even doctors, it's irrelevant now. I mean, the comparison is, people don't earn well in this country, especially in public service. It's just they're not even there for the salary. And if you sit down and talk to civil servants, they don't even know. Some of them don't even know when the salaries are paid. There are ways of surviving, right? It's either through other businesses that they do on the side, or some of them who probably rely on kickbacks or bribe, different things. They don't rely on that, and I don't think there's going to be any difference with the judiciary. Well, you can say, okay, the impact on the judiciary is different because these are people who basically in the court and determine their decisions can impact lives. and people's future. So you also don't want people like that, compromise. By the way, the judiciary is an independent arm of government as well. And so you have the Judiciary Service Commission and all that, who also are involved in salaries and things like that. But at the end of the day, it all depends on what's available. It's not a revenue generating arm of government where you expect them to determine what their salaries can be. Their salaries come from service-wise votes or something like that. And so Val, nothing surprising here. Even your president, you know how much your president earns? I don't think the president earns up to $1 million in Nigeria, right? And this is what people fight and die. I want to,
No, but I was just about to make that comparison that yes, they're saying here that some of our African counterparts earn up to 3 times more than our judiciary in Nigeria. However, our House of Assembly is one of the richest in the world in terms of income and allowances. Same with the presidency. So yes, their net income is not anything to write home about.
Yes.
But the perks of the job compared to those with bigger GDPs, more stable economies is ridiculous. So why are we having that disparity if it's an arm of the executive, judiciary, legislature?
Agreed. And that's because of the way the National Assembly has basically muscled the presidency over the years and allocating their own down. That's why I said you have the Judiciary Service Commission as well. But at the end of the day, it's all about the money, man. You got to follow the money. How much do you have? This is the country that has been running a deficit for the last 10 years. Running a deficit for the last 10 years, and we haven't done anything to curb recurrent expenditure, right? So the recurrent expenditure that we think is high is where the salaries are going to as well. So at the end of the day, you got to go through very tough pains and make tough decisions. And some of those tough decisions are like civil service reform, which might mean loss of jobs for a lot of civil servants, right? And I don't think any government wants to do that. That's one problem we've had in this country over the last 2 decades or so. You have governments who find it difficult to implement reforms. That's why sometimes I can be sympathetic to the governor Erufai, because he's one person that boldly takes some tough decision, no matter how unfavorable it might seem in the face of the media. But here, whether it's to remove subsidy, whether it's to devalue, whether it's to implement civil service reforms, we've had committees upon committees that have come up with reforms to take that decision. No, not possible. And so this is the outcome.
Yeah. Like Kenneth says, because it's affecting them now, they want to call them bandits or they want to call the bandits terrorists. That's a typical thing of a Nigerian politician. If it doesn't affect them, he takes no action.
You knew this was going to happen. Please add your name to your messages so we can take them. Your number is 2683. So calling them terrorists allows the soldiers to move in on them, but the federal government does not want it. That's a solid point there, because semantics and the position of the executive describing them affects that.
Absolutely. Faroche says, thanks for the humor you bring to the studio amidst the sad news that daily trail the Nigerian space. On naming the bandits terrorists, it emboldens the military to treat them as such. This, in my opinion, is long overdue. All right, let's move on to our next story. Essay Insecurity, Kaduna to shut down telecom services in parts of state. So when it happened in Zamfara, eyebrows raised. And I think they moved to, Katsina, yes. We thought, this is not a very good trend. Now, some parts of Kaduna, citing security reasons, according to the governor, Nasir El-Rufai, would have to shut down telecom services. Aside that, also some operations of transportation services in certain areas. Do you think that stopping or these kinds of moves are necessary to tackle the level of insecurity in that part of town? So do anything that you would take, just like what the governor said, that because of what they're facing, they have to take these measures. Do you think he's justified in his move?
So the move itself is necessary. So they've gone on to ban motorcycle completely, tricycle riders giving timeline for operation, use of containers to buy fuel, and some other measures in place to curtail the rise of insecurity in the state. So recently we conducted a study, right, in Kaduna, Katsina, and Zamfara on this shutdown, then next September 17th. And our findings revealed that we included Kaduna, even though Kaduna was not part of the state that had the telecom shutdown. Apparently, there were local governments in Kaduna that already experienced this shutdown in services. 2 weeks before the announcement of Zamfara, they're already out of phone services. And in Zamfara state, where it's 100% across all local governments, they're feeling the impact of the military in terms of curtailing security activities. However, not all local governments have felt security reasons. even though they didn't have phone services to work with. So in other words, it is necessary, and yes, it reduces the activities of bandits in the state, but will it give the desired result? Is the question. And from our findings, no, it's not giving the desired result because it's not simultaneous. And when they go in here to this local government to attack, and when military leave, they oftentimes come back. If it is done simultaneously across all the different states that share boundary, it cannot just be Kaduna alone trying to move in on these guys. It has to be a cooperative affair with all states in that region. So they do not have a safe haven to run to. And when Kaduna comes down, they come back to Kaduna. From our findings, when we did the research, majority of them have impact on their businesses, negative impact on their businesses.
Yeah.
A lot of 6% from our survey, 6% no longer earn a living.
Yeah.
Nothing.
We
for
talked
them.
about that yesterday. They were lamenting the fact that it was affecting businesses terribly.
And the fact that these guys are not even seeing. So the reason for the phone services shutdown is for military to move in and act,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Most of these activities are done at night. So during the day, there's no much presence or much traction between the military and the bandits. It's done at night. And at the end of the day, they are losing a means of livelihood, but are not seeing the impact. Now you're bringing this to Kaduna. Will you now completely shut down services across all states? So when they see insecurity issues, the next thing to move in on. Yes, they are selected local governments, but for how long? We all know what it means to put a ban or say for 3 months. We're not good with timelines. 3 months goes to 6 months to 7 months and thereabouts. So I think as much as it is imperative for the government to put this in place, they need to look forward.
All right.
Think long term.
All
What
right.
can they do?
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Joseph Meyer saying, and I think I'm glad that someone's mentioned this. You see, when there's no punishment for impunity for actions, it would always continue. I think people should be punished for doing video coverages of life-threatening incidents without the purpose, evidence, or carry out help, but no for driving, but not for driving traffic log or page. Very important. So no more people accuse those who were recording Dr. Akuyili.
Yeah. Ugo Dre, please, I would like your thoughts on this story from this day newspaper. Federal government to decentralize IPPIS, that's the Integrated Personal and Payroll Information System. And this was revealed by the Attorney General of the Federation, Haji Ahmed Idris. What's the implication of this, please?
Well, it just means that the IPPIS, which has been controversial in some instances over the last few years, states are now empowered to operate it without having to come to the center, and that's really what technology is about. Yeah, so you can basically, I guess, download the system within your own state and then implement as well. And IPPIS was introduced in 2007 for one reason, which is to eliminate ghost workers and ensure that the right people earn the right amount of salaries, and then there's better visibility with how money is transmitted from the center to the people who earn this money. So decentralizing it is good. It's the right direction. I like the fact that this is now one thing. If there's one good thing this government has done, this is part of it, which is ensuring that this has gone not just within a few NDAs or parastatals. It's now basically nationwide. I think they've gone from maybe 7 or so to over 700 MDAs that now implement IPPIS, and so
Almost all the MDAs.
Yeah, they basically forced it on. That's one thing they did along with the TSA. Not their original idea, but something they've implemented vigorously. I remember that this was also one of the reasons why ASU was on strike for a while.
Thank you.
So just to refresh in memories here.
So giving them back-end access, do you think it's going to greatly, the word I'm thinking is assuage the issues that ASU has been putting forward to the federal government?
Yes, because it gives them better control, right, of their how their salaries are also paid. It gives them better visibility as well, and then some form of autonomy as well. So I think it's fine. Of course, there's risk around it because at the end of the day, it's technology, and technology does come with its own risk. There's risk of hacking and all that, with decentralized systems and all that kind of stuff. There is, but with good security measures, I think you can basically mitigate some of those risks, and then get the full benefits of what this is about. a bit perhaps maybe a bit esoteric for some of our listeners, but IPPIS is it's a very, very necessary tool in this country. It's one of those things that we should be proud about as Nigerians, and not a lot of countries have this sort of system. And now that they've moved to decentralization, I think it just makes sense.
Yes, and I would like to believe that, I mean, they considered doing this because of the pressure that ASU was putting.
Yes, because ASU also wanted, their own, self-control. Yeah, they wanted it customized to them as well. So they didn't want like a one-size-fits-all kind system, right? So they have their own salary systems and salary caps and all that. So give us something that we can customize. That's the difference.
Fantastic, thank you. Obi says shutting down telecommunication is not the solution. Stop the source of the bandits' funds. All right, we'll take this discussion further during Lagos Talks 981. However, I just want to point out a comment on YouTube. We want to be very sensitive and careful in terms of the kind of questions we pose. If it's going to cause a divide, or it's going to be divisive, would advise that you desist from making such comments. And so, if you don't mind, would ask that the last comment kindly delete it, because it's almost tending towards being mischievous. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Godre.
Thank you.
Thank you, SA Ikes. Follow them at the handles I just mentioned. Godre at Godre, SA Oikala has at SA Oik. Stay with us. In 7 minutes, we'll be back to discuss with you. Call 0144899181.
Union Bank, your simpler, smarter
How
bank.
would you say that? Is it Fulani herdsmen? Right, that you want to know who the killers are, or could they be Fulani herdsmen? I'm like, why are you saying that? So what? Number one, we're saying don't call them Fulani herdsmen. Why are you asking that kind of question? If you're not trying to whip up ethnic sentiments and all that, that's very wrong. Thank you,